163,000 views. That's all I had last night from the breaking news on Mar-a-Lago. So I know there's a lot of people that a day later are going to want to know what's going on. So let me give you the update here. Ben Shapiro, our ninja with the yarmulke, has put it most clearly. Hell to pay. Ben Shapiro issues a warning on Mar-a-Lago raid, addresses claims Trump could be barred from office. First of all, I'm actually going to have to update my opinion on this. Evidently, Trump cannot be barred from office. I thought they were going to try to raid Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. By the way, hello, Mercedes. Welcome to
Lance
Wallnau Show.
Welcome
today.
back.
Good to be back. It's good to have you back, too. Mar-a-Lago gets raided, and I thought that they're going to plant evidence. You know, we're always talking like this because what do you do when you've got when you got these devils on the loose in Washington? You know, you predict all kinds of crazy stuff. This feeds the conspiracy neuroses of a lot of us because it's like, what the heck are they thinking? You don't go send 20 or 30 FBI agents down or to go raid a president's house. Can you imagine if we did it to Barack Obama? I think he's got some information there on deals with Iran that we should be finding out about. Maybe it's hidden in his safe. Raid Obama's house. Oh, the whole nation would be in flipping turmoil. Well, the only reason the nation isn't in turmoil is because conservatives have more self-control than liberals. And contrary to what the liberals talk about on January 6th, we're only violent when we believe we have a revolutionary issue at stake. What the Democrats have to be careful about is that they don't become King George against the patriots, which is big government, big danger right now. So Ben Shapiro says hell to pay because the trust in the institutions, trust in government, the Department of Justice and the FBI, trust in the institution of the press and the media is at an all-time, you could say, dangerous low. Why? Because, see, our trust in these institutions is the cement that builds the social contract of how we can live together with our differences. If at any moment a person feels as though they don't really have a just representation in government, it feeds the anarchy that destroys governments. If at any point a person feels as though, and I've heard Jordan Peterson explain this, he said like the ladder of hierarchies. So if you don't believe that you have a reasonable possibility of making a living, if you really believe the game is rigged racially so that you'll never get up the ladder because of your skin color, it produces a despair that results in violence and anarchy. You have to be able to trust that the hierarchies of institutional power in finances, in jobs, in government, that there really is a legitimate way of going up and down the ladder, and that your role is to play by the rules so that you can have your opportunity when it comes. When you lose confidence in your institutions, you have the overthrow of civilization. You have anarchy until a new order comes out of it. This is what the devil wants to do. I hate to say it, but this is what the Democrats want to do. That many of them are almost intentional about opening up borders. Well, they are intentional. So that you have the bleeding masses coming through the borders, unvetted, unfiltered, and so that you have crime laws that empower the criminal and disempower the law. It's really, for those of us that are awake, it's like, oh my gosh, we're watching the dismantling of culture before our eyes. But what Ben Shapiro is saying here is we now have an incident with a timeline. The breach of that Mar-a-Lago compound, the breaking into Trump's house, the opening up of his safe, better have justification in the nature of the warrant. So you see, a warrant is going to be exposed. The warrant application is going to have to be revealed. They're going to have to read what the FBI and the Department of Justice have as a predicate for going into Obama's house or Biden's house or Trump's house. Put this in perspective. This is or Clinton's house. I mean, they didn't do this when Clinton scrubbed 30,000 emails after being required to bring the contents to Congress, and nobody prosecuted her. Didn't do it with Hunter Biden's laptop. Didn't, why are we not surprised? Because most of us that are on the shock end of this realize how dangerously exaggerated things have gotten. Therefore, Shapiro makes this statement. I want you to hear this. We won't know how fully insane the FBI's raid on Trump is until we see the warrant application. But after Russiagate, and years of investigation predicated largely on Clinton campaign misinformation, if the basis for this isn't bedrock solid, there should be hell to pay. Now, I think this is done in a sense almost out of desperation. It's kind of like Hitler at the Battle of the Bulge. He was losing, and so the only way that he could kind of regain momentum was a desperate surge to punch his way through the Allied structure, and it ended up being enveloped in Bastogne, Belgium, and part of France. So, in this moment, what I believe we're seeing is somebody in the FBI said, this is amazing if you think about it, after Christopher Wray was just up in Washington a week ago on the hot seat explaining to Senator Grassley, who's no MAGA patriot January 6th wild card. He's the old 80-something-year-old guy from there. Where is he from? Is he Iowa or something? And Grassley's is an institution. He's been there as long as Biden, practically. And he's saying, we've had whistleblowers come to us from the FBI saying that they falsely dropped the investigation on Hunter Biden and sealed the information and have opened an investigation into Donald Trump. We should have been listening to what the guy was saying. What he was saying while Wray was writhing there on the hot seat, talking about Hunter Biden's, the absence of action on Biden, Grassley was saying the whistleblowers said they're sealing up and putting a firewall around Biden because they're going after Trump. Now you know what the whistleblowers were alluding to, a raid in Mar-a-Lago to get what? I honestly think that they think Trump has some secret notes in there about how he planned on taking the Capitol. This is how crazy they are. They believe their own stuff. See, what happens when you're under demonic influence is you start conveniently lying because it helps you. But then you believe in your own lie and you start to build a mythology around your belief. These guys are so lusting for power, so insatiated in their hatred of Trump, that they believe he was leading an insurrection, even though there was no weapons, no guns. The only people that were killed were disarmed patriots and a female vet. So they have to concoct the story that Trump has somewhere instructions about how he was going to take the Capitol, or maybe we could do this, or maybe we could do that. And if they can produce that evidence, they might be able to use that as a disqualification from him because of the insurrection participation, from being able to run for president. They're not going to find any other information. It's not going to be tax returns, although they're going to grab anything they can. You understand? They're desperate. This is like what Hitler did at the end of the war was one big roll of the dice. And I think this is a desperate move, but it's rendered all the more absurd because Christopher Wray, was just on the hot seat, and he has to approve the raid. The Department of Justice has to approve the raid. Shapiro's right. We're all going to be in breathless anticipation. I think in the demonic councils, if you go up in higher levels spiritually, I think what the devil is trying to do here is provoke. Understand what they're trying to do. They would love to see if they could shift the midterms by some kind of jam up the momentum of, after Trump's wins last week, 42 candidates that he's endorsed have so far succeeded. They see the red tsunami come. They see Trump's hat on top of it. So they're desperate. I think they want to provoke civil war. I think there's certain demonically inspired ideas that actually end up being implemented. I think there are people that are trying to bait frustrated Trump supporters into incidents that, now mind you, the guy that went to Kavanaugh's house was going to kill 3 Supreme Court justices, assassinate 3 justices, has in his social media record, we could change the political equation by removing 3 conservative justices. He was going to Kavanaugh's to kill him and then proceed to kill 2 more conservatives, Supreme Court justices. Did you hear that in the news? Has it been top of mind? Am I the first person that mentioned 3? Well, that's because you want to see a reverse of that process. They'll suppress the truth and unrighteousness, but watch them amplify the first MAGA hat patriot who blows it because he's fighting back at the big bad FBI and government coming after Donald Trump. I think they want to bait the conservatives into a misstep so that they could start to make this about suppressing the dangerous Trump movement and extend the shadow of that tower of mortar over Mastriano in Pennsylvania, Kerry Lake in Arizona, and all the other MAGA candidates that are linked to Trump. Somehow they have to group stigmatify them. But I don't think it's going to succeed. Having said all that, the reason why I seem somewhat optimistic today is I believe this is a desperate measure because they are they're in the process of, Napoleon said, never interrupt your enemy when he's in the process of destroying himself, or never interrupt your enemy when he's in the business of making a mistake. Leave them alone. We have to pray, and I do pray, for peace, and this is a good time to just be still, because I believe that what they've done is going to backfire against them. I think it's going to create sympathy for Trump with all the independents that never were really liking Trump, but they definitely don't like government. And I think it's going to recruit an awful lot of people to see this as what the heck kind of overreach is this? I think it's going to further go to the branding of the bullies and the danger of the real fascists that are in government. I think it's going to make the MAGA candidates imbued with Trump the martyr as their covering because he's being persecuted unjustly. And I think it's going to fire up the engines of turnout. If the Republicans weren't motivated before, even the never-Trumpers don't like this. So, Mercedes, that's my monologue for the moment. Do you have any thoughts? I know that we hadn't rehearsed this, but this is breaking news, and breaking news requires a breaking monologue.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see all the commentary. I think for me, I'm agreeing with what you're saying that, I mean, in times like this, the devil notoriously overreaches. Like, he overplays his hand. He tries to take too much. And then I also think that as the church, one of the things we should be praying right now is expose, expose, expose. So the corruption that is in the FBI, the weaponization of it against a former president, I mean, that's unprecedented. And to see Ben Shapiro say that, and then also I believe I saw Andrew Cuomo come out and say something very similar, that the DOJ needs to explicitly state why this was done. I mean, so for Andrew Cuomo to be saying that, you're kind of like, oh, what's going on over there? It's unprecedented to have this happen.
Andrew Cuomo said that?
Yes, yeah, I saw it today. I saw the tweet today. So,
that's
but I do
interesting.
think it's expose, expose, expose. That's what we need to be praying for right now. And then, it conveniently comes also at a time, and it's got this bearing of a feeling of a false flag when the Inflation Reduction Act is being passed in the Senate and now being handed over the House, which should probably easily pass.
Well, it has to go through the House. The House is controlled by...
No, I know. It's like there's nothing there to stop it, right? The House it's democratically controlled. So we're going to get 87,000 new IRS agents to now audit. We can guess probably mainly conservative people back like when we had the issues with the Tea Party.
Susan Rice is in charge of an executive order that Biden had issued, which says that all government agencies are being released, funded, and coordinated in order to recruit, basically, Democrat voters. Yep. So with your Republican tax money, the entire government is now in a get out the vote campaign for Democrats.
Well, and what's crazy is I was looking at Turning Point today, and they kind of put out a few bullet points, and this is astounding, but they said the IRS will have more staff than the Pentagon, State Department, FBI, and Border Patrol combined. We're going to end up with more people working for and employed by the IRS than all of those organizations.
And their mission is basically to shake down the voters, to shake down the American middle class.
Yeah. They're estimating with IRS tax enforcement, they're going to collect $124 billion from IRS tax enforcement. And this isn't, let's be honest, it's not just going to be conservatives. It's going to be Americans. So even though they're not going to tax anybody that makes over $400,000, they're going to sit there and they're going to audit the middle class.
Oh, yeah, every but not to mention it allows them to start to audit your transactions, which goes to the digital currency agenda, which is managing your money and seeing where your money goes and if it's approved. It's like the Chinese system. And I do think that the American people are going to respond to this like a rat sandwich. I think they're going to regurgitate the Democrats, and they're going to be delivered if we can have free and accurate elections, which is a large part of why they're panicking in Arizona. Because all of Trump's people that are there, Kari Lake included, are there for investigating as well as reversing the electoral votes. It won't put Trump back in office, but what it does is it starts the dominoes with other states, with other elections, where we're going to really now find that they can't protect. It goes to your prayer, expose the truth.
Can I ask you a question, though? Because a lot of people may not understand even some of the history that's led up to the falsification of documents that's led to false warrants in the past. The ease at which sounds remarkable, but to manufacture cause in order to obtain a warrant, this isn't the first time Trump's gone through this. So I think it'd be interesting if you could comment on that. And then the other thing, if you want to comment on it, I've also seen out there in the interwebs how this is Trump really doing this. Trump is really letting the FBI come in and expose. And so, you've got that narrative floating around too. But if you wanted to comment on either of those, I thought that'd be interesting.
I almost wish we had a mechanism where we could have people giving me the latest crazy Q conspiracy theory, just so that I could deliver us from evil by preemptively giving you the vaccination of this is crazy. So no, Trump didn't orchestrate his own. It's like I love the stories from all the prophets that prophesied a red tsunami in Trump's midterms. And then if you remember correctly, the narrative that came out after that, Trump is so brilliant, he orchestrated his own defeat in order to expose now the complete agenda of the left. Is this guy crazy or what? I mean, he's one step ahead of him no matter what they do. So at that point, now you're going into glue sniffing. So this isn't a Trump orchestrated break-in. But I did get a private message today from one of Trump's legal team. And they told me the story that isn't in the news, and you're hearing this live, breaking news on the Lance Wallnau Show. The story that isn't in the news is that the break-in began in the morning. Trump knew about it as soon as it started. He waited until it was wrapped up so that he could go on public platforms and expose it. But he did not want his supporters showing up at Mar-a-Lago creating an incident like January 6th.
Wow.
He did not want his supporters seeing this as a threat to him, not knowing he's not there. They picked the time when he wouldn't be there because they had enough sense to know the last thing you want to do is exploit CNN covering Trump having to open the door and find out the FBI is there.
Yeah.
So Trump, in order to save the FBI and his people from needless flashpoints of potential violence, held his powder until they were off the property. And then what you see is the live coverage is really delayed coverage of just a couple of police, vehicles that are on the property, till to just secure the house. But Trump, the lawyers told me that he held back in order to make the announcement so that no one would get hurt and not mention why he held back, because it doesn't need to be said.
Well, it's like, I've seen some CNN, MSNBC coverage. They're already salivating over this. This is already going to the new Russia gate of what was the warrant for? And, all we know is this right now. And it's just 24/7 over there of some big thing's going to drop. And like we saw with Russia gate, it never manifested, but it's 24/7 coverage. Same thing with January 6th. This is like it's going to be the new thing the press runs with. It's crazy to me.
Well, and the reality is, we're going to have to wait to see what the warrants specify. But like Ben Shapiro says, it better be good. And because it has to be documents or artifacts that that they couldn't have acquired by going to Trump's attorneys with an appropriate request. They had to literally circumvent the protocol of asking his legal protection. Remember, here's my problem, and this is what Michael Solomon said on real what's his thing?
John Solomon?
Huh?
John Solomon?
Yeah, John Solomon.
Okay.
John Solomon on Real News, Real American News, Real.
Yeah, Real America's Voice.
No, he's
which
on
we're
Real
on
America's
Saturdays.
Voice, but he's got
You
like
mean
Just
his
the News,
show,
Just the News.
The News, yeah.
All right, John Solomon on Just the News, not Michael Solomon, my dry cleaner, but John Solomon. And here's what he says. He says that the reason why the FBI raid happened is because when the Republicans had the House and the Senate and the executive branch, well, they had it. And Russiagate came out, and the accusations were flying. And the Republicans did not end up holding the Democrats accountable for fake news, exposing the dossier source, the setup of Crossfire Hurricane, trying to set up Flynn, to try to pull him out, to try to unravel Trump's credibility as a president. That because they didn't crack down when the DOJ, the FBI, and the Democrats started colluding to destroy the president when they had power, it emboldened them. And what happens is when you're dealing with a criminal mindset, it's like organized crime or like the CCP. They'll probe until they hit, boom, the steel wall. Now they know how far they can go. They'll go right up to there and look for a weakening in the wall to probe beyond that. They do this in their physical expansion of islands right now in China. They probe international boundaries, then they occupy it. Then they probe beyond that. So the devil literally is in the business of testing your boundaries. And if he can get you, he says, you're soft here, you're hard here. Okay, well, keep pushing on all fronts. Let's break through and see where we had a hard part over here. Oh, we could go right to this guy's life. We can go to his body, his health, his marriage, his finances. Let's get him. So it's the same way with the devil in government. When the Republicans have not demonstrated their ruthless resolve, like Lincoln had to do in dealing with the South, till the blade and the steel comes out, you're going to see the masses enslaved to idiocy. So what we're looking at now is we're looking at the need for a strong November victory that isn't controlled and manipulated by the news cycle that the left is going to try to generate with all the disruptions they can. We have to be able to put this. I know this is not the sexy part for you guys, but this is the practical vision for winning a war. We have to put the gavel in the hands of Jim Jordan, not Kevin McCarthy. We have to have Matt Gaetz and guys like that in charge of these committees. And the committees need to have full teeth to go in on the Hunter Biden laptop, on the crimes that are involved with the misrepresentation of facts on the borders of the United States, Mayorkas, and has to dust off his notes. But Merrick Garland, Department of Justice, is like, Bannon says in the War Room, it's true. Keep your calendar free and keep your notes clear, because these guys, along with Wray and the FBI and their treatment of the Hunter Biden laptop, the grand prize, all of these stories. And then I want to see all of Pelosi's tweets. I want to see the police department's tweets. I want to see the mayor's tweets on January 6th on what they were colluding to do. And let's have a real good time getting at the truth. Well, we're out of time on this segment of the show, I'm sorry to say, but you can sleep, I think, with peace of mind as you pray for the peace of God to come upon our people, that we can be patient and let truth expose the lies, and pray that we do the kind of cold, calculated spiritual warfare that reasserts a hand on the levers of power and try to arrest this nation from further self-destruction. And I think that's a spiritual assignment we've got. But I want to remind you guys that your freedom, if you're in business, is going to be based on you doing business with other people. We got to get away from these big organizations, companies, and Wall Street guys that are woke and against us. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/public square or public SQ, because this will give you access to an app that's free. I want you to identify the patriots that are in your backyard. Instead of giving your money to woke corporations, give it to a brother or a sister who's perhaps a believer, who's got a business. And let's start to support our own local commerce and our own local communities and our own local patriots. And put your own business on that app so people know who you are and what you do. I don't care if you're a chiropractor, an accountant, if your husband does this or that. Put the business down because we've got to build our own infrastructure. Go to lancewallnau.com/public square and sign up for free. And let's start to build our network and our movement, okay? Till tomorrow. We'll be back with a whole lot more. Promise you that. Stay optimistic, people. I know it doesn't look pretty, but we're actually winning.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have,